You're alive.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to call the Human Services Commission meeting to order, the regular meeting. I'm gonna take a roll call if I could. Vice Chair Riley. Commissioner Hubbard. Commissioner Jameson. Commissioner Jameson.
Here.
Commissioner Lurie.
Here.
Commissioner Shearer.
Here.
Commissioner Sterling.
Here.
Commissioner Hubbard. Okay. Public comment. Written comment is accepted for non-agendized items and should be submitted electronically no later than 90 minutes before the meeting. The comments will be emailed to the Human Services Commission and posted online prior to the meeting. First item is the approval of the minutes. If I can get a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of October 21st.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scheer. I have a comment for consideration under item number 3, where it references Scottsdale Cares and my suggestion that the amount be increased to $2. That is without context, and it may be helpful to say something along the lines that it has been $1 since program inception in the mid-1990s. That's just a suggestion.
I'm going to defer to either Irma or Greg and see what we need to do in this.
Sure, Chair Zubia, Commissioner Chair, we can certainly, I think that's probably very appropriate. And so when we get to that agenda item, we can talk a little bit more, share a little bit more about some of our ideas that Irma and I had met with another city staff member this week and concerning Scottsdale Cares. So, but yeah, I think we could certainly take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? In that case, I will take a vote. Vice Chair Riley. Commissioner Hubbard. Commissioner Jameson.
Approved.
Commissioner Lurie.
Approved.
Commissioner Shearer.
Approved.
Commissioner Sterling.
Approved.
And I vote approved. Thank you very much. Item number 1.
I'm sorry, was there a first and a second?
Oh, you're right. I don't remember hearing a second. I don't even remember hearing a first. I'm sorry. Yes, I need a motion and a second.
Commissioner Scheer, again, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of October 21st.
And Commissioner Sterling will second that.
Sorry about that. Okay, item number 1, regional efforts to address homelessness. Amy St. Peter, Deputy Executive Director of the Maricopa Association of Governments, will present local and tribal governments' efforts to work together to strengthen the regional infrastructure to address and reduce homelessness. These efforts included the adoption of 14 regional strategies and the development of an action plan to implement the strategies. MAG will present an update on the data and outreach driving the regional efforts. Input will be invited regarding priorities for the regional efforts and feedback on the draft action steps. Thank you. One thing before we get started, if you guys could mute your microphones unless you're talking. Thank you.
Chair Zubia, this is Irma. Please allow me a minute to bring up my screen.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, thank you very much for having us here today. As Irma brings our presentation up to the screen, we do want to thank you. We are very much looking forward to this conversation. Our primary goal for being here tonight is really to listen. It's to share with you some information about our regional efforts, but really most importantly, it's to hear any feedback that you might have regarding these action steps, to hear how you might like to be involved, and then to hear how we might be able to support you and engage in fully in these regional efforts. The city of Scottsdale has been serving in a leadership role in these efforts, and we thank you, your staff, particularly with Greg Beshin, your Human Services Director, have provided very, very helpful information and context for how we can best align these regional efforts to help meet your local needs. We go to the next slide, please. And so this is just a preview of some of the questions that we'll be asking and hopefully answering tonight with your conversation, with your feedback. It is critically important to us that we hear from you what your priorities are so that we'll know how to best align our efforts and to meet and exceed your expectations. Next slide, please. And so we've been building these efforts really intensively over the past year. And we're excited to be able to share with you the progress that's being made, as well as the work that remains ahead of us. Next slide, please. We started these efforts last January, and we've been very focused on building this regional approach in a way that has measurable progress. We are very focused on reducing the numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness, again, being able to really demonstrate a measurable impact to our core nation. We also want to make sure that people can receive help no matter where they are in the region, and that we want to be able to keep people housed both before, after, and during the pandemic, understanding that while we're facing a public health crisis, we're also very much facing a housing crisis. Next slide, please. None of this work would be possible were it not for our partners. We consider you, the City of Scottsdale, to be one of our primary partners. In addition, we've been blessed to be able to work with all of these different agencies, and we continue to do so throughout the planning and hopefully through the implementation of these regional efforts as well. Next slide, please. And so really the why are we doing this? We could answer that question just with this photo. All of these efforts, while we're talking intensively about data and strategies and impact, truly it's about the people. It's about the people being served. It's about the people still living in need right now in our region. Next slide, please. Throughout our region, we've been seeing an increase in homelessness for the past 4 years. This trend is common not just to our region, but to our state, as well as to the rest of the country. This data shows you the information, the results from the last point in time count, which was not conducted last year due to the pandemic. We are awaiting word from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to confirm that we'll be conducting the same count again in 2022. But this is the latest data that we have. And you can see that we have some startling trends. Not only are these numbers increasing, but they're increasing at an alarming rate. For the first time ever, the numbers of people who are unsheltered were higher than the people who were sheltered. That has never happened before in our region. We're leading the country right now in these increases. We have the highest percentage increase of people experiencing homelessness in the entire country. Statewide at 10%, you can see our regional numbers, though, are even higher than that. We're also 5th highest in the country for percentage increases among families experiencing homelessness at just about 9%. Again, that statewide, our numbers here are higher. So this is concerning, and in part, these regional efforts are driven from a desire to reverse these trends and to see these trends decrease instead of increase. Next slide, please. Part of what we are seeing as driving these increases are the evictions. When the moratorium was put into place, that dramatically decreased the number of evictions that we were seeing. Prior to the pandemic, Scottsdale evictions were generally at about 100 per month. After the moratorium, those evictions in Scottsdale have dropped to about 38 per month. Originally, ASU and U of A were predicting that 20% of all renters would lose their homes as a result of the moratorium being lifted. We've not seen the flood of evictions that we had feared. Instead, we are seeing a steady increase. And we anticipate that a number of those losing their homes as a result of that moratorium being lifted will indeed experience homelessness. Next slide, please. So this is where we'd like to share some data looking at the City of Scottsdale as well as the regional data. You can see that we're experiencing a housing crisis and the numbers of people who are finding it harder and harder to find affordable rents. You can see that the City of Scottsdale experienced a 70% drop in apartment units with rents under $1,500. That is true across the region. But not to that full extent. There was a 36% decrease in rents under $1,500 compared to the 70% decrease in the City of Scottsdale. Next slide, please. We're seeing similar trends in sales transactions as well. So when you look at $300,000 homes, that housing stock that is rapidly decreasing throughout the entire region. You can see it's a much smaller proportion of housing stock that's available throughout the region, as well as in the city of Scottsdale. There was a 57% decrease in housing stock across the region at the $300,000 price point and lower. There's a 40% decrease in the city of Scottsdale, but you can see that there is already a smaller supply of housing in that price point to begin with. Next slide, please. And so as people cannot afford to pay their rent, as people are able to afford homes, they're being priced out of the market. That's one of the reasons that contributes to people experiencing homelessness. There are a number of reasons, though, that contribute to that dynamic throughout the region. And so we ask people, what is the primary reason for them experiencing homelessness? And you'll see before you just some of those reasons on the screen. There's a wide array, and often there are a number of reasons why any one individual or household might be experiencing homelessness. This does include mental health and substance use, as well as family disputes, economic reasons. It's a broad array. This underscores the importance of working multidisciplinary across sectors throughout the entire region. Next slide, please. Unemployment is another reason, and there are claims throughout the entire region. People are losing their jobs in all communities, and they are turning, and they're reaching out right now for assistance. And so through this slide, we demonstrate that there are varying levels of need throughout the region. Next slide, please. Another way of starting to understand the levels of need, particularly on a prevention basis, are to look at people who are calling for help. They're asking for help for housing, for homeless assistance, such as rent, utility as well. And again, there is a level of need throughout the entire region, with some deeper pockets of need in some communities. Next slide, please. And another indicator then. So when people are paying more than 30%, 50% of their income every single month just on housing, that places them at risk. And so for some communities, for example, that may not be seeing high numbers of people experiencing homelessness in a visible way in their communities, they often look to this as an indicator to understand who may be at risk and to focus on prevention as their response to homelessness. And so throughout the region, we have more than 500,000 people who are paying more than 30% of their income every single month just on housing alone, and nearly 230,000 households paying more than 50%, which greatly puts them at risk. Again, as you can see in this map, there's a level of need throughout the entire region. Next slide, please. And while there's a level of need throughout the entire region, there's a varying level of programs throughout the region, with deeper concentrations in a smaller number of communities than we see the need. This is the data from our latest housing inventory chart for shelter and housing beds throughout the region. Next slide, please. And so at this point, I'd like to introduce my colleague, TJ Reed. He is our Regional Homelessness Project Manager, and he'll talk with you a bit about the process that we've undertaken to address these needs throughout the region by strengthening that regional response. If we can move to the next slide, please, and TJ, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, so as Amy described, what actions are being taken in relation to all of this information and data that was shared with you. So this shows a timeline of what MAG has been working on with all of our member agencies, including the city of Scottsdale, that began back last fall and really started work on research and outreach to understand what actions can be taken. And so in the months after that, regional strategies were developed that were voted on with our Continuum of Care Board all the way up through the regional council for approval. And after that, those are kind of high level, big picture strategies. After that, it said, let's take these strategies and really refine them down to specific actions that our region can take to address homelessness. We see, based on our data, not only in the risk factors, but also in homelessness itself, that we're seeing substantial increases across the board. We need to take action on these things. Next slide, please. And so the real vision and mission was that all communities in the region are strong, safe, and healthy communities with the mission to reduce and prevent homelessness through collaboration across sectors, making homelessness rare, brief, and one time. we know that homelessness is not just going to end, right? We want to just make sure that if somebody is going to be homeless, we prevent that as often as possible. And if somebody does then become homeless, we make that really short time, and we make that very infrequent that is happening. Next slide, please. And so of the strategies that were approved by regional council, they're really bucketed into 5 categories. These represent the most viable actions we can take as a region. So these are high level, and then examples of these strategies include increasing the supply and geographic dispersion of temporary housing, also increasing diversion programs and legal assistance, et cetera. And some of the actions are actually underway and or funded by some of our core partners. One example of that is with Maricopa County and their landlord engagement program. A variety of different funding sources are needed in these action steps. It is not just up to local and tribal governments. This is public, this is private. This is a community problem, which requires community solutions. Next slide, please. And so as we get into the action steps, the specific questions that we asked and our member agencies supported in developing responses to this are what immediate and also long-term actions can local and tribal governments take to address homelessness regionally. Next slide, please. So the first, and what I'm going to do is just talk about each of these categories on a high level, and then we can go back if you have any questions or comments on these. But the first is really related to committing to the work regionally to reduce homelessness, that we are working together, we are collaborating, because homelessness does not just look at a city line and say, okay, well, I'll stop there, right? We need to work together on the messaging that goes out, the data that we're using, and really just tracking our progress towards reducing homelessness. Next slide, please. And so no homeless plan would be a homeless or housing plan without discussion and specific actions related to housing. And so these figures represent a goal of reducing homelessness by 25% in the region. And then this data is very specific. And we worked with our partners at Solari, who oversee the homeless management information system, to look at our homeless trends to say, what exactly is the projection of how many people will be homeless over the next year? And based on that, we want to look at that data each year to say, what are the trends telling us this year? What are we needing to be able to overcome this? As this is an aggressive problem, we need aggressive solutions to this. And this really focuses on having a balanced portfolio. So as we're progressing towards reducing homelessness, there needs to be more temporary housing. There needs to be more permanent housing. There needs to be more affordable and workforce housing. And all of those need to be in that same continuum, right? Of we're developing out all of those, not just picking one and saying, all right, we need a lot more temporary housing, because that is just resolving one aspect, not the entirety of that. Next slide, please. The last really focuses on our diverse partnerships to addressing homelessness. We know that homelessness impacts so many different sectors, whether that's criminal justice, healthcare, mental health, substance use, et cetera. I'm sure you all are very well versed and aware of that. And so no plan would be a plan without working on those collaborations and diverse partnerships. We have here really focus on the core aspects and working in the regional systems that already exist and that may be able to improve in collaborations to reduce homelessness. Next slide, please. And so our next steps, as you'll see in October, this draft and of action steps was shared widely, and we very much so appreciate the feedback that was provided by the City of Scottsdale and the Human Services Department. Big shout out to Greg and Irma of all of the work that they have put into this in supporting and moving this forward. And in November, we presented, and it was approved at MAG's Management Committee, and we have a presentation shortly with the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care. The MAG Regional Council meeting is actually in December 8th, and that is when it will go up for a vote. This is an exciting opportunity because it's the first special session of the Regional Council, and it is specifically dedicated to homelessness and housing, which is really just showing on a high level that homelessness and housing is being prioritized by our local and tribal governments, which is great because I'm sure we are all seeing the impacts of that. And then after this, those votes, and we're hoping that it goes through and passes, we're really supporting the implementation and ongoing evaluation of the action steps. Next slide, please. These next two slides really just show a tool that we wanted to share with you. It's called a hand up tool, or the homelessness assets needs for data and unified planning. And so this is a tool that we have, and please reach out to, I think Amy's contact information is at the end of this. If you're interested in doing a deeper dive and understanding some of the specific services and programs or the assets, and then layering that with some of the needs that exist. We have specific needs like homelessness, but we also have data on evictions that looking at it on a map is just helpful to understand when you overlay both those assets and needs to say, okay, what is the gap here? What is it that we can do to potentially address some of the issues that are existing in our system? Next slide, please. This next slide just shows what it looks like when you click on one of the programs. It has a lot of detail around the specific programs that exist in each particular area. We've also received a lot of feedback from our member agencies and countless providers across the county to make sure this data is up to date and useful. Next slide, please. And with that, this is, like I was referencing before, this is Amy's contact information. If you have questions or comments that you think of after this that you are interested in connecting with us on. And with that, I think we'll give it back to you, Mr. Chair, and we're open for any questions related to the presentation.
Thank you very much, Amy and TJ. Appreciate it. Any questions, comments? I know it's a lot to take in right now. All right.
Chairman Zubia, Chairman or Commissioner Jameson.
Sure.
I know we're struggling with these moratoriums or lack of. Are there any initiatives around the county or in the MAG sphere for various municipalities to impose their own moratoriums?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jameson and other members of the commission, thank you for that question. I'm not aware of any local initiatives. We'd be happy to research that though and follow up, but we're not hearing of anything like that right now. The governor, of course, did rescind the state moratorium. The federal government has rescinded theirs as well. I'm not under the impression that any local communities are trying to implement local moratoriums at this time.
Okay, and a follow-up with the governor's lifting the moratorium, is there any prohibitions for local governments or entities to put mandate or moratoriums in place?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jameson and members of the commission, I would need to research that a bit more. I'm not aware of any mechanism right now for local governments to be able to do that. But we would be happy to research that and to follow up with the commission.
Well, yeah, I understand, and I really appreciate the information we got this evening. And I know it's all about advocacy, but it's I think that is part of the advocacy that we could offer to this, to offer some movement on getting more moratoriums or new moratoriums in place.
Absolutely. There are a number of programs in place right now to assist both the landlord as well as the tenant to be able to keep them in their home. And if I could ask TJ to talk a little bit about the help that's available right now, particularly through Maricopa County, the Justice Courts, and through azevictionhelp.org.
Sure. Thank you, Amy. Just wanted to reference a couple of things that are not necessarily related to mandates or different local moratoriums, but a lot of people have come together to provide support and information. So one is there's an eviction help a website right now that goes through legal questions and support, as well as going through the rental assistance that people may be eligible for. So whenever somebody is going through the evictions, this site is really helpful and can be publicized. And there are actual social media toolkits and things to just take that information and publicize it to ensure that the access is there for any individual. And again, that's legal aid, but also rental assistance resources. And then there is a recent program that was funded by Maricopa County within the justice courts, partnering with community legal services to ensure that anybody going through the eviction process has access to a staff member from community legal services within the courts to actually provide that legal assistance and aid for people going through. So they have all the information that they need to be as successful as possible. So those are just a couple of resources that we can reference, and we can definitely send out information afterwards if you're interested in hearing more about those.
That would be hugely helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jamison. Anybody else?
Yes, Commissioner Serlin here. Amy, TJ, thank you so much. It was very nice. Good information, good presentation. Amy, and I know we go way back, and remember at a MAG conference, it was in Glendale actually, you had a workshop on shared housing. It was very informative. And I just wonder if any shared housing is going on as an option for people experiencing homelessness. Is that being considered?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Serlin, really good to see you. You're right, it's been a long time, but it's really good to be able to connect with you again. With members of the commission, yes, there is a Shared Housing Institute. Our region is actually one of a handful across the country that's able to participate in that. And TJ, I'm not sure if you're in a position to offer some more detail on that, but it is very much an option, and it's one that we are pursuing actively right now, because that is an excellent way to be able to really leverage existing housing stock in a much more efficient way. TJ, are you able to add more detail to that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Serlin, exactly what Amy was saying. So this is active, and there's actually a lot of interest in both providers and funders of implementing this. We don't have a specific time frame right now, but these are actively being worked on, and I would anticipate projects breaking ground within the next year and a half. This is something that people are identifying special populations for, that this would be more effective for older adults, military service members, etc. And so right now it's really in that space that people are exploring the ways in which that could be utilized best. So there are a couple of pilot projects on board to test out how it works with the special populations. And based on those findings, I think it will be more expanded. But I'm glad you brought that up. And I think there is a ton of interest in this particular topic, especially based on the growing rental prices in pretty much everywhere in the county at this point.
Excellent. That is great to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Serlin. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none.
Yes,
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Chair
Go ahead.
Zubia. Chair
Go ahead.
Zubia,
Yes.
thank you so much. I want to just, on behalf of the Human Services Department, Amy and TJ, I want to thank you so much for the incredible amount of work. I don't know that, have you kept track of the number of meetings that we've all taken part in?
We have not.
Oh my gosh. I can't even tell you over the last year, probably year and a half. But we have come so far, and really because of MAG and because of TJ and other folks at MAG, to have this in our hands now, and for us to now drill down, take a look at it, and then really make some decisions about really Scottsdale's future and Scottsdale's involvement in the regional plan. I'm going to ask that I'm going to agendize at our next meeting. I'd like to agendize because I think all of you need to digest this information and more deeply, and then we can have I'd really like to hear your comments and have a more in-depth conversation. Amy, if you could send me what you presented this evening, I can get it out to the rest of the commission. And that way they can really digest some of the graphs, the details, the information, so that we can have a rich discussion about how we really activate what we've all worked very hard on over the last year. But thank you so much for being here this evening, both of you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Have a good evening.
Amy, thank you, TJ. Appreciate it very much. We'll move on. Human Services Year-End Summary. Mike Murphy, Community Services Planning and Business Operations, will review the impact the Human Services Department had on the community. Go ahead, Mike, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening, everyone. As you just heard, my name is Mike Murphy. I am the Business and Analytics Manager here in Community Services. I lead a team of IT professionals and management analysts that we have a lot of different responsibilities, but one of the primary things that we do is we spend a lot of time collecting and analyzing data. We do that so that we can understand trends, we can look for efficiencies, we look for areas where we can implement technology and make everyone's lives a little bit more efficient. And as a result of doing that for human services, it puts us in a position to help tell the story of what human services does for the community. There's a wide range of services that we provide, as you know, and we try and summarize that and put it in a form that people can quickly digest the data and appreciate what Greg and his team do on a daily basis. So Irma, if you could go to the next slide, please. It starts with how many people in a community that we contact. Now we've got 3 years of data here. On the bottom, you'll see that's 3 years of data by Human Services Center. So Adapted Services, the Community Assistance Office, Paiute, the Senior Centers, Vista, and Youth and Family. And then we roll that up above and we show it to you. We show the data quarterly. In aggregate, even though we dealt with the impact of COVID, having centers closed for a long period of time, we still, year over year, touched 97.2% of the contact activity that we had the year before, and that's pretty remarkable. Next slide, please. So we also track things like special events. Over the course of the fiscal year 2021, we did back to school back last July. In the second quarter, we're now in the process of rolling out the Adopt a Family Thanksgiving and Christmas programs. Adopt a Senior. Paiute is doing the bike program. We distribute gift cards. There's the Holiday Foundation. There's the toy program. Everybody takes a deep breath in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, we do Beat the Heat, which is, as many of you already know, that is a program that reaches out to our senior community. So through those special programs, last year, we touched 1,860 citizens, and we provided $452,000 of value into the community. Next slide, please. If we look at the value of all of our assistance, and there's two ways to look at it. One is in aggregate, which is up on the top by quarter, but also down below by center. The Community Assistance Office provided $6.7 million in federal funds, CDBG funds, into the community last year. Paiute, $42,000. The senior centers, $833,000. And I don't want to steal Kevin McKee's thunder because I know he's going to do a presentation next on Vista del Camino, but the numbers are remarkable. What they were able to do for the community by providing county rent assistance last year to the tune of $5.2 million. Next slide, please. How many people did we actually help? These are not unique individuals. There are a lot of people who receive multiple services and would get counted for each time they receive something. But in aggregate, even though we had less contacts in the community, we actually provided more instances of help than we did the prior year. We helped 94,045 individuals. Next slide, please. If you look at it by type, the biggest area that we're able to provide is mortgage and rent assistance through our community assistance office and our monthly mortgage or rent assistance through Vista del Camino. Utilities, food. There's a variety of ways we get food into the community. We pass out through the Family Resource Center at Paiute. We distribute baby food. Through a couple of our local centers, we have a bread program where people can come in and get fresh bread that's been donated by restaurants and grocery stores. We have the brown bag program. We have the food bank. We provide food vouchers. And then there's the meal programs, the home delivered meals, the congregate meals. And then there's the healthy pack programs that provide weekend nourishment for some of our elementary school students. Special events, we already talked about, that was $452,000. There's other miscellaneous programs, and there's also medical programs. Let's talk a little bit about the food program. Next slide, please. Because this is where we really shine. If you look at the city-funded programs, there's a variety of them. What you're looking at is a slide that shows by quarter what we do. The first number is the number of recipients, and then we weigh everything that we deliver to the community. So you'll see recipients and weight for each of the 4 quarters, an aggregated year-to-date number of recipients, weight converted into tons, and then the value of that we gave to the community. So you can see we gave $787 of baby food and formula to the community last year, the brown bag program. We distributed almost 57 tons of brown bags into the community. We served 6,391 congregate meals. We distributed 132 grocery cards or food vouchers into the community. We delivered 48,781 meals through TCAA through our home delivery program. The Vista Food Bank gave out 107.7 tons of food to 3,725 recipients. So in aggregate, city-funded food programs, we touched 64,518 recipients. We distributed 185.4 tons of food, and that's valued at $832,000, which I think is remarkable. Next slide, please. We also have some hosted programs, things that we don't pay for, and we wouldn't want to take credit for paying for them, but they nevertheless end up with our citizens. So I mentioned our bread program before. At Paiute and Vista, we have grocery stores and restaurants that provide fresh bread products. They're essentially available for anybody who comes into the center and wants it. In aggregate, we distributed 1.6 tons of fresh bread products. The Area Agency on Aging out of the Via Linda Senior Center has a home delivered meal program. They delivered 17,798 meals. And in our Healthy Packs program, we helped 1,732 kids to the tune of 8.6 tons of food. So when you roll that up together, we were able to deliver 201, I'm looking at the bottom table, by the way, we were able to deliver 201.3 tons of food with a value of $964,326. And that all comes out of just our human services group. They do a remarkable job. And that's all I really have. I'd be certainly happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mike, by the way. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, this is Neil.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shear. Great presentation and very impressive all the way around, Mike and Greg and the entire staff involved in this. Thank you for sharing this with us. I was intrigued by the slide that shows the assistance by location. And I wonder if there's a reason that we are seeing a spike in the very significant spike in the amount of assistance that is being provided through our 2 senior centers.
Yes, there is, and I can answer that question. Prior to this year, for reasons that we don't quite understand, we were not reporting the number of people who were being served by the brown bag programs and some of the other food programs. So we made sure to capture that data this year, and that's why the spike. So you'll see that that's not an anomaly. As we move forward in the future, those numbers will stay consistent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I have a
sir. Yeah.
Chair.
Oh, go ahead, Chair.
No, please
go ahead. Commissioner Jameson, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Mike, I really appreciate this. Is profound information. Were most of these numbers presented as an individual head count who received these services? And if so, do we have a sense of how many actual residents, total residents, that were impacted by this in terms of average number of household in a household, et cetera? Can you address that?
We are working to refine our data collection so that we can get those numbers. We have them for a couple of programs, but to be honest, I'm not confident enough in them yet to present them publicly. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that we refined our process enough, but we are working to do that. So in the future, yes, we will be able to. Now we do have, as I said, some of the programs, the data lends itself to us doing that easily, and some of the other programs, not quite so much, but we're working on it.
Yeah, thank you. I would conjecture that for each number on your charts, there's 3 or 4 or 5 family members or household members that are behind each of those numbers on average.
Yeah, for the food bank numbers for sure. Mm-hmm. The brown bag probably not so much, because you're either looking at a single senior or a senior couple.
Right.
But those are the things that we're looking to refine. So yes, I hope to be able to present those numbers and with confidence in the future.
I have a question on the slide that showed value of assistance and received assistance. I was looking at the Paiute numbers, and they were pretty low. And I'm wondering if there's a reason for that. I have my ideas as to why, but I'm wondering if you have a reason that they show such low numbers as compared to Vista and other places.
Well, a lot of times folks will come into Paiute and get referred to Vista, to the food bank, or to senior services. Paiute does a lot of counseling, not as much distribution of goods and services. Is that, Greg, help me out, is that a fair representation of what happens?
Yes, Mike, absolutely. And Chair Zubia, members of the commission, that's exactly right. For instance, this year, just due to streamlining the program, everyone that comes into Paiute for the holiday program participates in the Vista program as well. And that includes the gift and toy program. So there just is, we don't have the space at Paiute to be running like a large food bank, et cetera, like Vista del Camino does. And but yes, absolutely, that's a very, very good explanation for it, Mike. And yeah, basically, mainly what we do in the Human Services Department is do a lot of social work and intensive case management with Mike Lopatch, who's the manager, Rosita, who's the caseworker over there, and then we just are bringing on another part-time caseworker to assist with the need over at Paiute. And also, as you can all imagine, and again, when we, I'll get into some of this with my director's report, but we're also, this center is very much an educational center with 4 different educational institutions that are on the campus. And so the focus at the Paiute campus, just a little bit unique, and it's different. It's still very important work. It's just very different from what, for instance, like we're doing down at Vista del Camino. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Michael, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, item number 3, Vista del Camino program updates. Kevin McKee, Human Services Manager, will provide an update on Vista del Camino's services and upcoming programs. Whenever you're ready, Kevin.
Chair Zubia, commission members, thank you for having me present this evening. My name is Kevin McKee. I'm the Human Services Manager at Vista del Camino Park and Community Center, and I also act as the Community Action Program Director for Scottsdale. So my hope is, I know we have some new commission members that actually are probably very well informed on our Human Services Department, but my hope is to provide an overview of our services, our core services at Vista del Camino, and provide updates on our recent program changes in response to COVID, since no surprise there, pretty much everything has changed in response to COVID. So next slide, please, Irma. So our rent, mortgage, and utility assistance programs have probably seen the most change due to COVID. So we, as I mentioned earlier, we are Scottsdale's designated CAP office, or Community Action Program office. So that means we have a long-standing agreement with Maricopa County, and we provide assistance in paying rent, mortgage, and or utilities for low-income individuals or families in Scottsdale. Utilities could include electric, gas, possibly water, trash, and sewage. So we, the city of Scottsdale, we provide kind of the manpower, and through our IGA with Maricopa County, they provide the actual financial resources. So most of our funding for these programs is coming from them. Just general eligibility, applicants who are looking to receive this type of assistance have to live in Scottsdale. They need to meet our income guidelines, and in most cases provide verification of a recent financial crisis. And that type of crisis could be, maybe it's a job loss, reduction in hours, unexpected medical or household expense, or if there's some type of immediate emergency, like there's an person with disabilities or an elderly person living in the household or a small child, and utility shutoff could immediately threaten their well-being. Through our programs, we can pay partial, full, or future amounts that are owed. We can add credits, pay deposits, moving costs, cover late fees, you name it. It just depends on what the client can qualify for, and what the individual circumstances for their situation. So in response to COVID, we have seen an unprecedented expansion of our CAP program, which has been both a blessing and I shouldn't say curse, but it's definitely given us some headaches over the last year. But I have the utmost respect for our team, our supervisor, Angela Bravo Gallagher, who has guided this team through this expansion. They have done absolutely amazing work, and I can't say it enough. I try to put that plug in wherever I am presenting on behalf of my team. So pre-COVID, just to put this into context, our utility budgets topped out at about $440,000 for the year. Our rent and mortgage budgets topped out at about $230,000 for the year. In the last fiscal year, which ended at the end of June, we provided over $780,000 in utility assistance, nearly $3.8 million in rent and mortgage assistance, which is just absolutely insane. And we are only getting better at that. So far this fiscal year, we've provided nearly $300,000 in utility assistance and $2.3 million in rent and mortgage assistance, which is fantastic. So we've been able to achieve this through a few different things. First, we've received obviously a lot of new funding, most of that federal funding. Last fiscal year, we were working with up to 23 different funds. Each of those funds has separate eligibility guidelines. So again, I give all the credit to our team for navigating through all of these different eligibility guidelines and policies and finding the best fit for the families that are applying. We've been able to increase our staffing through redeployments and contract staff. When we first received this huge expansion in funding last summer, so that would be what, July of 2020, the city was still in the middle of a hiring freeze. You know, we weren't sure how long this COVID thing was going to last, so we didn't really have a whole lot of other options. We were able to redeploy staff from our libraries, our 4 library branches, as well as other program areas like our court programs. We had great assistance from the senior center social workers. They were helping us out with our utility appointments. Sue O with our special programs transitioned back to help us out with utility assistance. So we've been really lucky to rely on talent from throughout our division. This year, we received some new funding from Maricopa County and brought on some temporary part-time contract staff, which has been great. And all the while, at the end of this fiscal year, we will have received $960,000 in staffing reimbursements from Maricopa County. Most of that funding is for staffing costs that are already budgeted in the general fund. So this is, you know, revenue recovery that we're bringing in for the city. Pre-COVID, our CAP team included 6 employees, and throughout COVID, we've had up to 17 employees at one time supporting our CAP services. So very impressive. And we've also been able to streamline our processes and have relied on new technology to expand access to our program. So you can now apply entirely online. We are doing pretty much everything either over the phone or electronically, with exception to those folks who have access issues. We can meet with them one-on-one in-house or guide them through our on-site computers here. So if we can move along to the next slide, we will talk about our special programs. Right now, we have our Adopt a Family program going on. This is got to be one of the longest running programs in human services, well over 40 years, I believe. And this is made possible with our special programs team made of Sue O and Julia Batista. Although Sue, we are sad that she recently received a promotion and will be transitioning out, but she will be integral to transitioning that program over to whoever's next in line. And we also receive great support from our local nonprofit partner, Scottsdale Community Partners, formerly Concerned Citizens for Community Health, or CCCH. So this program targets Scottsdale families in need, provides support from local donors for 2 main components: Thanksgiving and winter holidays. We've been doing our Thanksgiving distribution this week. I was helping out today, and my feet are my dogs are barking right now from running around all over the place today. So we are coordinating this year's program, as Greg mentioned earlier, with Paiute's toy program. So it's a similar program. We're really wanting to combine our efforts to provide ultimately a better service to all the participating families. There was not a Thanksgiving component to Paiute's toy program. So that's really the biggest benefit of kind of getting everyone involved in this. And our hope is to grow the program from about 250 families to more than 300 families. So we had just under 230 families for Thanksgiving, and that number continues to grow as we enroll more families. So There are a lot of other holiday assistance programs around the Valley, but we think our program gives the best experience to our participants and our donors, most personal experience too, without the two parties actually ever meeting, which is pretty amazing. Our families must reside in Scottsdale. They have to meet our income eligibility guidelines and have at least one minor child in the household. We can also serve those disabled adults and seniors if they're in that household. If they're living alone, then we'd refer them over to the Adopt a Senior program. Families must enroll to the program. We began taking electronic enrollments this year in September, which has helped us really streamline that process. And during the enrollment, families provide us with information that is confidentially passed along to our donors, things like the children's interests, their clothing size, and how the program will really help their family. And our other big flagship program is our Back to School program, which takes place in July, and that's really geared at preparing Scottsdale students for the upcoming school year, giving them everything that they need, all the school supplies, backpacks, clothing, you name it, to help them be successful. So we will move along to career services. Next slide, please. So our career services team is made up of some dynamic individuals. First off, Sheila Williams is our human services caseworker. Jessica Wilkinson is actually a position that we have shared funding with Maricopa County for. So she's actually employed with Arizona at Work through Maricopa County Human Services Department. And then we also have a very talented, and I will note, award-winning volunteer career coach team, which includes Commissioner Lurie. So they were pretty much the only city volunteers who were working remotely throughout all of COVID, which is pretty impressive. So that team of 5 was absolutely dynamic, and we've appreciated their help so much. Our on-site offerings for career services include an actual physical career center with computers, printers, fax machine, resources, you name it. Our career closet, where job seekers can actually shop and find clothes, accessories, you name it, to for that big job opportunity. We have a career classroom for breakout sessions, workshops, one-on-one sessions, and then we also host hiring events and workshops. We actually had a hiring event earlier this week where we had 4 employers out. So we provide career coaching to assist with things like resume development, interview prep, assistance with applications, job searching. Sheila Williams provides more in-depth case management resources like bus passes, gas cards to help those job seekers. She provides job readiness skills, unemployment assistance, you name it. Jessica with Arizona at Work provides kind of a whole new host of services that we just recently tapped into with the expansion of our relationship with Maricopa County just in the last 2 years. So Jessica actually provides WIOA, or Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act training grant eligibility screening. So she is helping enrollees tap into federal funds up to $10,000 to help pay for training programs or credentialing. She also provides office proficiency assessments and certifications, and provides case management and referrals. So since COVID, we've had to totally change how we're doing business, and Sheila and her team have expanded their web content. They've offered virtual sessions, and up until last month, all of their career coaches were remote, which again is so impressive, and kind of led the way for some really new and innovative things in terms of volunteer service and service delivery. So our biggest challenge of the year, and this is really a national issue right now, is reaching more job seekers to connect them with employers. We have hosted some hiring events, and not just with us, but all across the Valley, all across the nation. We are just struggling to find those job seekers. Now, we think things may change now that the eviction moratorium has ended. Some of those federal benefits have run out. We expect to see some of those numbers tip up, but we are continuing to be more focused in our approach with those programs and hope to see those numbers continue to increase. We'll move on to our last topic here, which is our food bank. Next slide, please. So with our food bank, we partner with St. Mary's Food Bank through Scottsdale Community Partners, and we provide a few different flagship programs. First, our kind of bread and butter program is our food box program. So those food boxes that we provide include non-perishables, fresh items like eggs, milk, deli meats, bread and pastries. We even can include pet food and toiletries to folks who are needing it. We provide ready-to-eat bags for folks experiencing homelessness, healthy packs program for elementary school students to sustain them through the weekend. We have a commodity senior food program for monthly food boxes for seniors. Grocery rescue program where our staff go out to local grocers, restaurants to collect food that's still good, but maybe past its sell date and redistribute it through the community. And then we also partner with Scottsdale Unified School District on a quarterly basis to distribute up to food to up to 300 families. So with COVID, we had to change things quite a bit, actually. So we streamlined our food box distribution, changed it to a drive-through appointment-based distribution, which has been fantastic, and we are continuing that long term. We moved the previously, our social workers were the ones that were doing all of our food box appointments. Given the increase in our rent, mortgage, and utility programs, we had to make a change, and we fully transitioned that over to our food bank team, which again has been a great change that we made. We've increased our food box cap from 6 per year to 12 per year per household. So previously, households were only able to receive 1 food box every 2 months. They can now receive up to 1 food box every 30 days. We've expanded our capacity for appointments from 6 appointments a day to up to 14, which is fantastic. We've utilized redeployed staff from other departments to keep our food bank running without volunteers. So pre-COVID, we had up to 20 volunteers really running our food bank. And when all of that came to a close with COVID, we had to think outside the box, and thankfully we're able to redeploy staff from Parks and Recreation to keep things moving. And we've been able to increase food box distribution by nearly 240 boxes over the previous fiscal year, which is impressive because we have not had the same amount of on-site rent and utility clients. In most cases, when clients are on site, we will tack on a food box to their appointment because they're already here, and they don't have to make a special trip or anything like that. So we expect our food bank numbers to increase even more as soon as we get back to some, more of those on-site appointments in the future. So with that said, that is my overview, and I am happy to take any questions from the commission.
Kevin, very informative. Any questions?
Commissioner Lurie here. Kevin, thank you for the presentation. And I just want to say what an honor it's been to volunteer along with all of the professional staff you've got at Vista del Camino over the past several years. You guys do excellent work. Thank you.
Commissioner Lurie, I appreciate that. And we would be nowhere without our volunteers. And I mean that sincerely, and especially our Career Center volunteers. You have been an integral part to our service delivery, especially throughout COVID. And you have been a shining example of some really great innovative things that can be done remotely. So thank you.
Anybody else?
It's just Commissioner Serlin and Human Services Manager McGee. Very impressive. You guys have hit the ground running. Sounds like you're just so resilient and still meeting the needs and exceeding them. And again, very impressive. I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Serlin, and so great to hear your voice, and and was so happy to hear the news that you joined our commission. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm here to help any way I can.
I got a couple of questions regarding, first one is on the toy program. In the past, you get toys donated through the Toys for Tots, and they'd all go to Paiute. Are they now coming to you, and are you still bagging them like they used to in the past, or do you change your formula completely to the adopt a family?
Sure, Chair Zubia. That's a great question. So yes, we are taking all of the toy donations over here at Vista since the space situation has changed a bit over at Paiute, to say the least.
Exactly.
So so our plan is to kind of do a hybrid. So we will be redistributing those toys out to the families and adding some of the elements of the adopt a family program, like the gift cards, food for the holidays, things to kind of supplement that. So it'll kind of be a hybrid this year.
Okay, and then it makes sense because this is the first year that you're actually moving it over to Vista, right?
Correct. Yes.
My second question is in the back to school program. Are you planning on doing your cover the bases walkthrough again? And if so, do you know where?
So as of right now, and that's another great question, we are tentatively planning on hosting at Scottsdale Stadium again in their new event space. Obviously, given the news that Sue O is transitioning into her new role, that there's a lot of unforeseen changes that we'll have to work through. But yes, as of right now, we are planning to returning to Scottsdale Stadium. With that said, I will add, though, that I think we've learned a lot with throughout COVID and how we've changed the programs. And I think there have been some great changes that we've made to the program to kind of streamline things. And so I think we are going to try our best to incorporate what makes sense when we return back to kind of the old way of doing things, to bring some of those best elements of the COVID programs and integrate them into our normal offering for back to school.
So you think it'll still be a walkthrough as opposed to a drive-through? Because I remember loving to see the looks on the kids' faces when they got their shoes, when they got their clothes, when they got their backpacks. You know, they were just so joyful and they were in heaven.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Our hope is to get back to a walkthrough and potentially change how that walkthrough looks and maybe condense it a little bit. But yes, get back to an on-site walkthrough type event.
And Commissioner Zubia, members of the commission, Kevin, thanks for the response to that. Yeah, actually, that's still very much under consideration, Chair Zubia. Bill and I have had some conversations about some of the streamline changes that have been made, et cetera. And I've had a couple of lengthy discussions with Sue on some of her thoughts about, what that will look like. So it's still kind of a work in progress before we make final decisions about that. Thanks a lot.
Sure, I understand. Thank you. That's all I have. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scheer. I just also want to add my thanks and commendation to Kevin and his team and the volunteers that clearly have done a remarkable job under very challenging circumstances, and the resourcefulness is extremely impressive. And I just want to thank you very much for everything you're doing on behalf of people in need.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Commissioner. And, I think all that we ask of the commission is to really try to highlight out to the broader community the great things that we're doing. And, if possible, spread the word on our services to connect folks in need. So thank you.
Thank you again, Kevin. Appreciate it. We will move on. to Director's Report. Greg Bestian, Human Services Director, will update the Commission on the status of events and activities of the Human Services Department. Whenever you're ready, Greg.
Chair Zubia, thank you so much, members of the Commission. Wow. So between Amy's presentation, Mike's presentation, and Kevin's outstanding presentation, very, very, really tremendous efforts and hard acts to follow for sure. I think you probably really all are very, I'm sure astounded at what happens in human services. And it's kind of exciting that it's ever growing and it's ever changing. We are never static in human services, and I'm really pleased about that. But it's with folks like Kevin and the other managers that are brilliant and passionate, and they're creative and they're committed, and they're really stellar examples of what our taxpayers, I think, really expect from folks that work for the city, and especially in human services. And so the letters that pour in, Kevin didn't get a chance to share with you some of the letters from last year from folks that received the assistance through the holiday programs. The same, we had some outstanding and heartbreaking kind of stories over at Paiute with folks that we were able to help that actually had fallen through the cracks and not being qualified or couldn't really, unfortunately, weren't eligible for services that are provided over at Vista del Camino. So, and thank you so much, Commissioner or Chair Zubia, for your work on the Partners for Paiute board, because Partners for Paiute has been able to step in and do incredible work with individuals and families that just don't qualify for our other services, and otherwise would be left just, kind of heartbreaking in terms of what they wouldn't have at the holidays. And so, I don't know what to say when I've got a 4-page report that I'm ready to hit send to all of you when we end the meeting here. And I guess to highlight, I've got a lot of information in my report, obviously, and with Kevin's and Mike's report, there's just so much to absorb, and many of you are new. And so I do want to just kind of say that under very, very rare conditions over the last, it's been almost 2 years now, staff have proven that instead of kind of becoming disheartened about the COVID and the challenges of what that would mean, and big changes to staffing and need for lots of countless overtime hours to figure out what we were going to do. When you looked at Mike's numbers, 97%, I mean, we're serving nearly exactly the same as we did pre-COVID, and we've had to shift and do it very, very differently, using a lot of automated technology, et cetera. But think about how challenging that has been to our clients, that some of which, like our senior clients, they don't have computers. They don't know how to use computers. A lot families over in Paiute that don't have a computer to use, but still need access to the services. What does that look like? Seniors that can't come into the senior centers for many, over a year, much more than a year, to meet face to face with someone. We did take COVID precautions, and we did ask that they wear masks, and most of them were fairly compliant, as you can imagine. We had some, rebel rousers that kind of didn't want to do that, but a lot of these seniors have been very shut in over the last nearly 2 years, and we had to be very careful about our home visits when we delivered all the gifts last year at the Adopt a Senior program. Same with kind of how we took precautions at Vista. We look so different, don't we, when we have masks on? We don't see the full expression, and it is compounded when you're working with seniors and you're working with folks that already feel a little disenfranchised, that just feel they want to have a little more human touch. And where our senior center social workers, as many of you can imagine, and same at Vista, we're so big on, the human touch and giving a hug. And so just being separated that way, I could just go on and on with the refinements that have had to be made over the last 1.5 to 2 years. And it couldn't have happened without people like Kevin and the other managers, and right down to the rec leaders and what they do for us. We're very challenged right now with staffing, as you can imagine, because folks can get jobs many different places. We have people that are moving closer to their communities and getting a lateral or a better position. And so I'm doing my best to try and keep really valuable key players in human services by providing new opportunities for them that, to be very honest with you, are part of my succession planning for the department. We have a lot, as you heard with Kevin, we and Irma this evening, we have a lot of talent in the department, and it'll just be so wonderful one day when one of those are going to be my successor, and we'll take human services on to the next dimension and where it should be. So I wanted to highlight just a little bit about that challenge. And so, a little bit more just to enumerate on what Kevin said. Our Vista CAP office, just for your, I guess, to round out the discussion, for lack of a better word, we're the gold standard with that 9. We're part of a 9-member network through the county, Maricopa County. And we've been asked oftentimes to pilot certain programs because of really the incredible high standard that we set at Vista and have over the years. We've had many, many good managers before Kevin that have done great work at Vista. But one of the things that's unusual about Vista del Camino's CAP office is we hire social workers for those positions that work with the clients that come in for emergency rent and utility assistance. That's different than what nearly all of the other CAP offices do. And it costs the city a little more money as far as hiring case workers or social workers, as we call them, and they are. It costs more money, but that's your city's commitment to providing outstanding service. And they've done this. I have nearly 25 social workers on staff. And this is huge. I mean, most senior centers across the valley don't have social workers at the senior centers. That's very costly, and it comes out of the general fund. And so while my budget is really fairly meager, and I'm going to talk to you more about that if it's not this evening, we're going to have some more discussions about that. But I just want to say that the city made a commitment many, many, many years ago, goes back to beyond Herb Drinkwater to city managers, the early, our best, Bill Donaldson, all of them that go back. They made a commitment that we would have that kind of service in all of our centers for folks. So while a lot of people don't think of when they come and visit, they don't usually think about human services centers. They think about libraries. They think about parks. They think about the railroad park. Got an award, and the highest award that was awarded across the country for outstanding excellence in parks and recreation programming. I mean, hey, come on, it is Scottsdale after all. But let me just now shift gears just a little bit. I want to agendize what was presented from MAG this evening, because this is really critical, folks, about where we go from here in terms of what we are going to do in assisting the very most marginalized in our community. And there's a lot of information that was presented. I want you to drill down and look at that information. And I want to share some of the thoughts that I have about the challenges that we're going to have as a department as we move on down the line. And when these CARES funds are no longer with us, these AZ CARES funds, we've got to have a discussion about how we're going to keep some of these very important programs up and running, because prior to the CARES funds coming, AZ CARES funds coming to Scottsdale, it was a very different landscape in terms of what we could offer. And yes, people could make their way that were experiencing chronic homelessness with comorbid, issues, presenting at a front desk at a senior center. Yes, our social workers were willing to absolutely meet with them, but the need has gotten so much greater. In 2019, we counted on a late January morning, early morning, we counted 102 persons that had actually not been sheltered in any way overnight and were right in Scottsdale. And so we organized the effort through Vista del Camino, through our special programs people, and we go out in teams, and that included in 2019, before the right before COVID hit, that included some of our council members, city council members, commission members, Human Services Commission, and other volunteers that went out and did surveys and met with 102 individuals. We are over 300 unduplicated members now in that HMIS system that Amy and TJ presented to you, that through our two Phoenix Rescue Mission and Community Bridges, we actually are able to now track all of these various individuals. Can you imagine what a percentage of increase that is from 102 to over 300? So, and it's growing. I mean, my office is right here at Indian School Park. So believe me, I can see what's happening before my very eyes. And it's startling, and it's sad, to be honest with you, when I see some of the folks that are outside my office. It breaks my heart to see somebody that is a mother to someone, is a sister to someone, is maybe missing as far as their family is concerned. And that individual still needs assistance regardless of her severe mental illness or her substance abuse comorbid condition. We still try every single day to make contact with these folks who really don't want to meet with us in the beginning, and it takes many contacts before they'll engage what we call an engagement with us. So there's so much that we really have to drill down and take a look at. And so I would ask that you take a look at the information that was presented by Amy this evening. And I would ask that when I agendize this next at the December meeting, I ask that you come with questions, and I ask that you come with your concerns and comments, because we've got to have an ongoing conversation about what Scottsdale is going to be doing. And so I just wanted to, I know you can tell I've got a lot of energy about that, but we've worked really hard to get where we've gotten so far with the programs that we're doing. And I really don't want us to go backward. So anyway, the next thing that I'd like to do, there's so many things for us to educate you on. And this is the reason why I have, like Kevin, at each of the meetings, we're going to be presenting like Kevin did this, because what a wonderful way to get inside the head of Kevin, who knows his staff and who knows all the intricate details of what's happening. And yes, you see all the bigger numbers of the report that Mike rolled out to you, but then you get to hear from Kevin, and you get to really, it's just, isn't it incredible what you've heard this evening from him? And so I've asked that at each of our meetings, because many of you are new to the commission, and I've asked that they do that kind of presentation for you, just what Irma's done with previous reports. They have so much they want to share with you. Kevin, I love what you said about really the role of the commission is for you to take what you've learned from Kevin, take what you've learned from Mike, take what you've learned from Irma, and then get out into the community and share all the good things that we're doing. And most assuredly, ask for ways that they can help. You know, you've got to be our ambassadors, and we're going to need funding. We're going to need a lot more funding than we're getting right now if we want to continue to do the things that we're doing. This year, we got $300,000 from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. In 2019, we got $750,000. We've been as high as $800,000. And this is seed money for the real in-depth great programs you're hearing about through Kevin and others. What are we going to do now? That's a big cut in, you know, helping seniors with moving assistance, helping seniors with emergency assistance, helping seniors with dental issues, food insecurity. I mean, you know, these are all the things that you all are going to be hearing more and more about as we move along in the coming months before you take your break in the summer. And so to that end, I would like to propose, and it's in my, you'll see it in my report to you when I send it out to you after the meeting. I'd like to get, we've got a shiny new van that Adaptive Services uses. I'd like to take you all out on a tour. Maybe December, I'd like to see maybe the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday after Christmas before New Year's. You can let me know if you'd like to go along. I also have a new secretary starting on the 20th of December, so I want to get her out to see all of our various centers. So I invite you to spend a half of your day just getting around. It may extend a little bit longer than noon, I don't know, but I want you to at least see the centers. I want you to get your eyes on them. I want you to meet in person, Kevin, and all my other managers. And so please let me know if that's just not going to work for everyone. We can go into the January month, but I just thought that sometimes that's kind of a things after all of our holiday programs and after we've all enjoyed our holidays and we're kind of sitting back and waiting for the new year to come. I thought it might be kind of an interesting way to ring out the old year or almost ring in the new year, however you want to look at it. So please consider that. And then realize it's 7 o'clock. So I am going to bid you adieu, but I do want to say, just on behalf of everyone in Human Services, we so thank you for everything that you do, giving of your valuable 2.5 hours of your time now to really be committed to what we're doing in Scottsdale to advance the people's lives and to make their lives better. And, you know, our mission is very simple in Human Services: serve Scottsdale. And we do that extremely well, as you heard from Kevin and as you heard from Mike and Irma. And it truly takes every single one, from me right down to the part-time recreation leader. Everyone has the same import. Everyone makes a difference. And so thank you for your supportive and passionate service to our community. And I wish you all a very, very nice Thanksgiving with the loved ones with whom you'll gather. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, I can attest to the work that both through the Paiute Center and just being on the commission before, and then just being involved with the city in different ways. I've seen the great work that that the Human Services Department does, and with such little, I guess, lack of a better word, monetary support. We never seem to get the funding that we need. We never seem to get the amount that we need. But yet everybody that is in that department is concerned about the individual. They're more concerned about the individual. They're concerned about getting the people the help that they need. And it shows every day in what they do. So Greg, thank you. Your staff, your employees, all the way down, like you said, to that part-time rec leader. It really does make a difference. And I'm always damn proud to tout the Human Services Department, especially on when Cindy and I do our day at Scottsdale Leadership. It's amazing how much people don't realize how much we do at no cost to the citizens. So thank you very much for all of that. And yeah, this is just a great department, and this is why, and another reason why I wanted to be on this commission again. Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Hearing nothing, I ask for a motion for an adjournment.
I'll make a
Commissioner,
motion.
Oh,
Oop,
go
to
ahead.
adjourn. Okay. It's Commissioner Serlin. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Commissioner Lurie, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy
Thank you.